The rain was coming down in sheets, the kind of rain that feels like the sky is punishing the earth. Emma gripped the steering wheel tightly, her knuckles white as the wipers struggled to keep up with the deluge. The highway was eerily empty, the kind of emptiness that makes you feel like you're the last person on earth. Her headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the slick asphalt ahead, but beyond that, it was just black. Endless, suffocating black. She glanced at the clock on the dashboard, 2:17 a.m. She shouldn't have taken this shortcut. She knew better, but the GPS had promised it would shave 20 minutes off her drive, and she was desperate to get home after the long, exhausting day she'd had. The car had been acting strange for the last 10 miles. A faint sputtering sound, a slight jerk in the engine. She'd ignored it, telling herself it was just the rain, the cold, anything but what she feared, a breakdown. But then it happened. The engine coughed, sputtered, and died. Just like that. The car rolled to a stop on the shoulder, the headlights flickering before going out completely. Emma sat there for a moment, her heart pounding, the sound of the rain hammering on the roof filling the silence. She tried the ignition once, twice, but the engine didn't even turn over. Just a dead, hollow click. "No, no, no," she muttered, slamming her hands on the steering wheel. She fumbled for her phone, her fingers trembling as she unlocked it. No service, of course. She was in the middle of nowhere, on a stretch of highway that seemed to have been forgotten by the rest of the world. She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. Think, Emma. Think. She could wait it out, hope that someone would drive by. But who would be out here at this hour, in this weather? And even if someone did stop, could she trust them? The minutes dragged by, each one feeling like an eternity. The rain continued to pour, the sound of it almost deafening. Emma's mind raced with possibilities, none of them good. She thought about getting out and walking, but to where? The nearest town was miles away, and she had no idea which direction to go. She was trapped, alone, vulnerable. And then, like a mirage in the desert, headlights appeared in the distance. Emma's heart leapt. She squinted through the rain-streaked windshield, watching as the lights grew closer. A truck, an old, beat-up pickup truck. It slowed as it approached, pulling over just ahead of her car. Emma's relief was short-lived, replaced by a gnawing sense of unease. She watched as the driver's side door opened and a figure stepped out, silhouetted against the headlights. A man. Tall, broad-shouldered. He raised a hand in a gesture that was probably meant to be reassuring, but it did nothing to calm her nerves. "You okay?" he called out, his voice barely audible over the rain. Emma hesitated, then rolled down her window just a crack. "My car broke down," she said, her voice shaking. "I can't get it started." The man nodded, taking a step closer. "I can take a look if you want. I'm pretty good with cars." Emma's instincts screamed at her to say no, to lock the doors and wait for someone else. But who else was going to come? She was stranded, with no other options. "Okay," she said reluctantly. "Thank you." The man walked around to the front of her car, popping the hood. Emma watched him through the windshield, her heart pounding. He seemed normal, just a guy trying to help. But something about him made her skin crawl. Maybe it was the way he moved, too deliberate, too calm, or the way he kept glancing back at her, his eyes lingering just a little too long. After a few minutes, he closed the hood and walked back to her window. "Looks like your alternator's shot," he said. "You're not going anywhere tonight." Emma's stomach dropped. "What am I supposed to do?" The man shrugged. "I can give you a ride to the next town. There's a motel there. You can call a tow truck in the morning." Emma hesitated. Every fiber of her being was telling her not to get in that truck. But what choice did she have? She couldn't stay here. "Okay," she said finally. "Thank you." She grabbed her purse and stepped out of the car, the rain immediately soaking her to the skin. The man opened the passenger side door for her, and she climbed in, the smell of old leather and cigarette smoke assaulting her senses. He got in on the driver's side, and they pulled back onto the highway. For the first few minutes, they drove in silence. Emma kept her eyes on the road, her hands clenched in her lap. The man glanced at her occasionally, but he didn't say anything. The tension in the cab was palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife. "So," he said finally, breaking the silence, "what's a pretty girl like you doing out here all alone?" Emma's heart skipped a beat. "Just heading home," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The man nodded, his eyes still on the road. Dangerous road to be on by yourself, especially at night. Emma didn't respond. She didn't trust herself to speak. The man's tone had shifted, just slightly, but enough to send a chill down her spine. They drove for what felt like forever, the rain never letting up. Emma kept expecting to see the lights of the town, but there was nothing, just darkness, endless darkness. And then the man turned off the highway onto a narrow, unpaved road. Emma's heart leapt into her throat. "Where are we going?" she asked, trying to keep the panic out of her voice. "Shortcut," the man said, his tone casual, "saves time." Emma's mind raced. This wasn't right. This wasn't right at all. She glanced at the door handle, wondering if she could jump out, but they were going too fast and the road was too rough. She'd never make it. The truck bounced along the dirt road, the headlights illuminating nothing but trees and more trees. Emma's fear was a living thing now, clawing at her chest, making it hard to breathe. She had to do something. She had to get out of here. And then the truck slowed, pulling into a clearing. There was a small, dilapidated cabin there, barely visible in the darkness. The man parked the truck and turned off the engine. Emma's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might burst. "What is this?" she asked, her voice trembling. The man turned to her, his face shadowed in the dim light. "Home," he said simply. And then, before she could react, he reached over and grabbed her arm, his grip like a vice. Emma screamed, thrashing against him, but he was too strong. He dragged her out of the truck, her feet slipping in the mud as she struggled to break free. "Let me go," she screamed, her voice echoing in the empty clearing. The man didn't respond. He just kept dragging her toward the cabin, his grip unrelenting. Emma's mind was a whirlwind of panic and fear. She had to get away. She had to. As they reached the door of the cabin, Emma made one last, desperate attempt to break free. She kicked out, her foot connecting with the man's shin. He grunted in pain, his grip loosening just enough for her to wrench her arm free. She turned and ran, her heart pounding in her ears, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The man was right behind her, his footsteps heavy in the mud. Emma didn't look back. She just ran, her legs burning, her lungs on fire. The trees loomed ahead, dark and foreboding, but she didn't care. She had to get away. She plunged into the woods, the branches tearing at her skin, the rain making the ground slick and treacherous. She could hear the man behind her, his breathing heavy, his footsteps relentless. She didn't know where she was going, didn't care. She just had to keep moving. And then she tripped. Her foot caught on a root and she went down hard, the impact knocking the breath out of her. She scrambled to her feet, but it was too late. The man was on her, his hands grabbing her, pulling her back. Emma screamed, thrashing against him, but he was too strong. He dragged her back toward the cabin, her struggles growing weaker as exhaustion and fear took over. And then, just as they reached the door, a sound cut through the night. A car engine. Headlights appeared in the distance, cutting through the rain. The man froze, his grip on Emma loosening just enough for her to break free. She stumbled away from him, her legs trembling, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The car pulled into the clearing, the headlights illuminating the scene. A woman stepped out, her face pale in the light. She held a gun in her hand, steady and unwavering, pointed directly at the man. "Step away from her," the woman commanded, her voice sharp and authoritative. The man hesitated, his eyes darting between Emma and the woman. He took a step back, his hands raised in a gesture of surrender. "This isn't what it looks like," he said, his tone casual, but there was a flicker of fear in his eyes. "I said step away," the woman repeated, her voice cold and unyielding. The man took another step back, his hands still raised. Emma stumbled toward the woman, her legs barely able to support her. The woman kept her gun trained on the man, her eyes never leaving him. "Are you okay?" the woman asked, her voice softer now but still firm. Emma nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Please," she whispered, "help me." The woman didn't hesitate. She pulled out her phone and dialed 911, her eyes never leaving the man. He took another step back, then turned and disappeared into the woods. Emma collapsed to the ground, sobbing, her body shaking with relief and fear. The woman knelt beside her, wrapping her in a blanket from the car. "It's okay," she said softly. "You're safe now." But Emma knew better. She knew that the man was still out there, somewhere in the darkness, and she knew that she would never forget the look in his eyes, the cold, calculating stare that had promised nothing but pain. The police arrived quickly, their lights flashing in the rain. They took Emma's statement, searched the area, but the man was gone, vanished into the night. Emma sat in the back of the police car, wrapped in a blanket, her mind still reeling. She had come so close, too close, and she knew that she would never feel safe again. As the car pulled away from the clearing, Emma glanced back at the cabin, now just a dark shadow in the rain. And she knew, deep in her heart, that the man would be back. And next time, she might not be so lucky. The woman with the gun had saved her life, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. The man was still out there, and he would be looking for her. She would have to be ready. She would have to be strong. But for now, she was safe, and that was enough. If you enjoyed this spine-chilling tale of survival and suspense, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more terrifying stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Remember, the world can be a dark and unpredictable place. Always trust your instincts and stay aware of your surroundings. Until next time, stay safe, stay alert, and keep the lights on. Sweet dreams, if you can.